a dark cloud over me. I call this nothing fright. And then I quote from an author who writes about doing nothing. I'm going to jump ahead here. And sitting with nothing when it feels like emptiness or loneliness can bring such agitation. As agitation occurs, it can be really difficult to see any benefit to the emotions that arise. But if you can tune in and really listen for your deepest thoughts, this can present an opportunity to root out not only current discomfort, but the historical causes for it. It's like working with a tool that feels unwieldy to operate, but ultimately gets the job done. And I'm just going to read maybe one or two more paragraphs here. Finding yourself with unbidden time on your hands, you might be visited by anxiety. Anxiety is the enemy of positive not doing. It is invader, marauder, thief, and an evil narcissist creating self-focused narratives of negativity and self-pity. Nothing fright arises and darkness creeps in, attended by looping thoughts of imminent doom, feelings of depression, and other variations of fear. Into these voids rushes negativity. And so that doesn't happen in my life very much at all anymore, but I'm trying to observe this lockdown as it's happening. It's kind of hard to do, right? We'll need time to reflect. And I noticed that there are times where, despite my best efforts, I get nothing fright. I fall into it. I think that the world is going to end. It happened to me last week.
And I would, because I was thinking that if I sometimes have too much time on my hands, like it does, I go into the worry, the obsessing. I think you were talking about ruminating, and I guess that's why a lot of people like to keep busy, but so we need to train ourselves differently.
Well, what I did was I took my advice. I wish I'd reread that chapter last week before I, went into the hole. But I with the help of friends, talking, listening, I was able. It took several days for me to get there, but I really was able to see that my discomfort really did have two parts, like I mentioned in the book. One part was just this cumulative discomfort of 8 weeks and this great dental apron weight on the world, or reading the news too much. And the other was, it really goes back to a lot of root stuff from my childhood that I'm always working on. I'm way, way better than I used to be, but there are times that it creeps up on me. And this is going to maybe sound like a sweeping generalization. So I live alone. Well, I have a ranch hand that lives in an RV, but I live alone in this big house. And I don't get lonely. I really don't. I've had plenty of visitors come and sit. I have a gigantic front lawn and we'll socially distance. But I think sometimes for people who are in lockdown, who are truly alone, maybe they don't have a family member or they don't have any pets or anything. I feel like that could present an even bigger opportunity to go into the fear place because you don't have a built-in sounding board. And I also feel like the telephone can be fatiguing. I'm having really fun at this Zoom meeting, but I go to several Zoom recovery meetings every day, and it can just be very fatiguing to communicate through the computer.
Right. Yeah. We have Marcelina has a question. Mars, I'm going to unmute you so you can ask.
Okay. Well, I was just curious. Spike had mentioned having a hard time focusing and having, being able to read, and that's been something I've really grappled with since this whole lockdown. I've got all this time, but I just have no focus. And I've got stacks of books to read and all these great titles, and I just am having a very, very hard time. So I was curious if you had any workarounds or ways that you've gotten around that.
Well, I think, I was going to say Steve can help with that, but Steve, real quick, I'm just going to mention this article I posted on my Facebook wall, which is open. It's these neuroscientists think that most everybody's in a state of heightened vigilance right now. Like, here's this invisible enemy, this virus that could get us at any moment. Yeah. And that when we're in a state of vigilance, concentration is really hard. It's apparently this phenomenon that people can't read, or I have a hard time listening to audiobooks. I just started to get my knitting on. Steve, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, I think that's a great question that you asked, and it's something I can relate to. I've had a hard time reading even the book we just wrote. But I'll read something from the book that addresses that. And it says, If someone mentions that they are reading this book, feel free to mention that you are as well, or feel free to not share that you are reading it, or that you have bought the book and that you have no intention of reading it, that you simply love the act of buying books. That maybe you like to leave a book alone after you buy it, that you have prison broke it from a warehouse, data farm, or library, where it sat alone and surrounded by strangers, wondering, who might choose me? Someone please get me off this shelf and take me outside where I can start to live. Feel free to skim this book, to forget to read it, to save it for another day, to donate it after not reading it, to throw it away by accident or on purpose, to keep it in your car or on your computer, but never glance at it, and to choose to feel guilty about any or all of the above, or to choose to not feel guilty about any or all of the above, or enjoy embracing the simple intention of reading this based upon the title or what you may have heard about the book, and then let that be enough. If you do happen to read this book, feel free to read it out of page number sequence and with or without thinking who you might recommend it to or who you wish would read it for their own good. Whatever you ultimately choose to do with this book, consult it, return it, delete it, use it as a coaster, take joy in the cover you never open. Please observe its inanimate stillness. It is something without you, but it is so much more with you. It is here as you are. The space in between and around you both is respected as sacred. Know this book can be anything both you and the book please. Know too, this book is strong and can be nothing at all, which is also fine because nothing is the point.
Wow, that's really great. Love that. I loved it. Your writing, especially Steve, was about not the judgment, all the judgments, stopping all the judgments we have about ourselves, and maybe that allowing what other people judge come in. So I think that, and that relates back to that permission to do nothing, right? And which is really hard for people in our society.
Really hard. I want to jump in real quick and say, based on what Steve read, two things. One, a great gift that Steve gave me. You would never know if you looked at my bookshelves that I'm a writer. I purge all the time. I hand books out to people. I get rid of them. My father was a hoarder, and it makes me uncomfortable. But at the same time, I love having books around. But then sometimes I'll feel guilty at the stack. And Steve said, well, you know what? You can just keep them around like they're your friends. And also I love how beautiful, as a knitter, I have so much yarn. I won't knit it all before I die. But when I want to feel good, I just look at my yarn shelves. It feels nice. I look at my bookshelves. It feels nice. And then also, Mars, to get back to your question, we talk about fallow time, like fields need to be fallow for new crops to grow. And because we're never doing nothing entirely, if you're not reading or listening or doing, it's just a playground. It can be a playground for your mind. And we really try to help folks make it be the happy playground, not the scary playground.
That's great. For people, I mean, you have 3 steps for embracing doing nothing. So, do you want to go just quickly through those 3 steps?
Steve, you got it?
Well, for me, it's the first step is giving myself permission. And the second step is redefining the word nothing. Not having it, thinking of it, judging it as a loaded word. And the third part is courage, and being able to say, like if somebody says to me, I remember asking me, what are you doing? And I said, nothing. It seemed kind of like they were taken aback. And so getting used to that and kind of expressing the fact that it is part of my life. I don't need a litany of things and events that I'm accomplishing and doing to validate myself. And so that has really helped. So it feels like a practice, and it started out like 10 seconds at a time. And what happened for me is that it's like a piggy bank. I added up those moments throughout a week, and it ends up being an hour after the first week. And so gradually my whole day ended up being moments of being busy and not busy. It's tangible moments versus intangible moments. Can I get those two to get along? And it's really a personal choice and practice. Some people don't want to do it maybe, but if you feel like doing it, I think we're giving permission or talking about permission mainly.
So, and it's more than, I mean, a lot of, I know, Spike, you do meditation, but it doesn't have to take that form, right? It can.
No, it could be, you could be, so we give some examples. I do love my meditation practice. It's really changed my life. But it could be when I'm walking the dogs. Okay, well, I'm getting a little exercise. I'm walking the dogs. That's not really nothing. Or if I'm brushing my teeth or making coffee, technically that's nothing. But those are things I do every single day, so that it's not like I have to stop and think, wait a minute, how do I walk the dogs? But one thing I have stopped doing is when I swim, or sometimes in fact, I don't really swim that much. I jump in and out of the water. There was a time in my life, and I talk about it in the book, when I would get up. Henry, my son, was very little. It would be before school. I'd turn on the espresso pot. I would literally drop to the floor and do 300 crunches. Then I would get him to school. I would walk 4 very fast miles. And then as time marched on, I added in regular yoga, martial arts, and then swimming a mile every day. Like I had this obsession with working out. And it's now, I still have this, my phone tells me how many steps I walked. But when I'm walking now, I don't care if it takes me an hour to walk a mile. It's no longer about this obsession to be a certain size or shape. I live out in the country. You can enjoy it in the city too, but I look at the sky. I let thoughts float in and out. And so I put that in my nothing pile, you know? Or if I'm knitting, I just got a hammock. You can't do a lot of you can't put IKEA furniture together in a hammock, I'll tell you that. So that's just, Steve, write that down. We have a new meme.
A new meme.
I have one thought is that the idea of music and helped a lot with me of understanding it better, and the idea of a rest in music. And a rest in music is an interval of silence in between pieces of music. And so if I can look at my life that way, and understand how I love music and the silence is in between the notes, then I can practice this.
And I guess with people who are designers, there's that, there's white space, and it's needed, right? White space in design is
yeah.
So what exactly, for people listening going, oh, this sounds great, what do you see as the benefits? I mean, what have you seen in your life that's changed?
I'll go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
For me, become much more efficient. It's strange, but there's like terms like slow is smooth and smooth is fast. For some reason, I get a lot more done living this way. It feels almost like I've added a 25th hour to my day. I'm never rushed. I'm pretty happy, and I don't get anything less done. So that's a big benefit. It's easier for me to be around myself and other people.
And
also.
Yeah, thanks.
For me, I'm going to jump in and say I'm just a lot less bitchy. Now, I do a lot of different things in my life. I have, like, to set joking aside for a second, I have a lot of joy in my life. I can be very optimistic, but I also can get into the cranky place. And I've over the past, well, gosh, I started meditating 20 years ago, but over time, I feel like I'm on this path to feeling happier. And by happy, I don't mean top of the roller coaster. I used to call it exotic calm, like an absence of chaos. And so an example I'll give is, it used to be, if, let's say I was performing 3 weddings in one day, and I'm driving from Austin to Dripping Springs and then up to Round Rock, I might say to myself, well, gosh, I can real quick stop at the post office and the Walgreens and blah, blah, blah. I don't do that anymore. I think, well, there's a little pocket of time. Cool. And so that's like a rest in music. It gives me more space. And the overall effect is I'm a calmer person. And also, because I'm 56 now, I think I finally understand, the bumper sticker, this isn't a dress rehearsal. Like, I don't know how much time I have left. I'm pretty sure I'm past the halfway point. And I don't want to wait to retire. I don't know if that's ever going to happen for me. So I want to make my retirement happen every day. I want to retire a little bit every day. And I'm just a way happier person. I said that very seriously. I'm very happy.
So what's your best advice for integrating this into your life? Like, where should people start?
Just follow, copy Steve, just meet up with Steve every day and he'll coach you.
Our book, you could buy our book, for example.
That's an idea.
There you go. That's a good start, right? I do like the idea of setting, one thing you said is setting an alarm, but make it a nice alarm, kind of like not ding, 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 but something gentle to remind you just to stop and breathe. And
I learned that when I know it's really tacky to name drop it all, and it's really tacky to do Buddhist name dropping, but I'm going to do it. I got to go on a meditation retreat with Thich Nhat Hanh. It was real mind blowing. It was the Plum Blossom Village people, and we were at a monastery outside of San Diego. And every day at random intervals, they would ring this bell or gong. And no matter what you were doing, I mean, you could be in the restroom, you could be eating lunch, you could be not really having a conversation because we had to be quiet, but whatever you were doing, when that bell rang, you stopped what you were doing and you listened for the tone of the bell. And we were only there 4 days, but by the end of the 4th day, you realized that bell tone lasts a lot longer than it seemed on the first day. And what I took from that is, if you set an alarm on your phone and it goes off, a nice pleasant alarm, and then you're just like, I'm going to take a few seconds here to say, I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. I also use it when I'm eating. I really am super mindful now when I eat. I watch the pace I'm going at. I take time to experience the food, the textures, the colors, the taste, of course. And so setting an alarm could be, I'm just going to take this moment and feel where I'm at right now.
Yes, that's good. I do sometimes get these little off my Apple Watch. It just says breathe, so then maybe that's they're on to something, right?
Yeah.
And we had some comments. Marcelina loves that idea of retiring a little at a time, which is really nice. And I think that goes along with that story you have in the book about the fisherman who's in the hammock.
Oh yeah.
And then somebody comes up and says, if you worked harder, you'd be able to do this and this and make more money. And what was the aim of that is so you could spend more time in the hammock, retire.
Yeah, right. You could just buy a hammock right now. Yeah.
Yeah. And you said you just did.
I love the hammock, yeah.
I love that thing that Spike came up with, the retiring. And I use that myself. And it reminds me too of something like I heard as a kid, and I'm not particularly religious, but the word Sabbath was always recommended in many religions, take a whole day off. And we can't do that anymore with all of our busy lives. So what we say in the book is you can take micro Sabbaths on any day of the week. And that's another term for it, but I think I like Spike's better.
Thank you.
A little bit at a time, yes. And Mars has another question. I'm going to unmute you, Mars.
Oh, I was going to just mention that at Next Tribe, we've just started, we're about to start an Artist Way group at the beginning. We're at the very beginning, and it's 12 sessions long. And, you're supposed to do the morning pages every day, which today I actually did it for the first time. just got the book and I'm just about to start it. I'm curious if either one of you have ever done the artist way, and what your experience was with that.
I have not, and I'm smiling because it makes me really aware of, I have what I call this blue collar chip on my shoulder, where I had a couple writing classes here and there that were required, but I like to think of myself as mostly self-taught. So I don't want any advice from anybody. And what's really funny is I teach a memoir writing workshop, and practically everybody who has ever come through the door has done the artist way. And I would say overwhelmingly they love it. And I'm sort of like, no, I don't want, I want to take credit for all my ideas. I'm just a stubborn person.
No, I get that. I was very resistant, and we laughed about how every single garage sale you go to in Austin, Texas has at least one copy of The Artist Way. That,
yes, that's so
people
funny.
buy it and they buy it and they buy it and they give it away and they never actually do it.
That's so funny.
I think I've bought it 3 times. So
have you done it, Steve?
My experience is that when I first started writing, I'd heard about it. I was working in Hollywood, and I bought a copy of it, and I did my thing of buying it and never opening it. For me, I wish I would have done it, because I think I've taken the longer version of it internally to get to maybe where that book takes somebody. I think it's probably must be really good as a more efficient way to create than what I did.
Interesting. Thank you.
One thing I wanted to commend you both for you had a period where you could download the book for free, and I wondered where that came from, and how's that as a I think as a business strategy somebody would say, no, don't do that.
Well, it's funny. It actually, oh, by the way, I didn't turn off my interruptions. I'll say something real quick. Stephen, hand it off to you. I'm just going to be very frank and say, as a business strategy, I personally thought that was an added benefit. That was not the reason we did it, but people were really generous in getting it out there, sharing it on social media. People were really generous in designing the book, producing the audiobook, which we'll be giving away the audiobook for free probably in about a week. If you go to the website, sleepingbees.com, you can keep an eye on that. But go ahead. I'm going to let Steve take over from here. Go ahead.
For me, it's definitely like an important part of my life is being of service to other people. And we had somehow finished the book at the end of February when the pandemic happened. And it was just a perfect opportunity to be of public service more, especially when it's a subject matter that people might be interested in. And also, we really wanted to give it away for free, obviously, because of the financial pressure everybody was feeling. And so that's what we did. It also actually helped us not go the route of traditional publishing, which can take a year. We just published it ourselves. And so that was wonderful. But right now, it's available on the website, sleepingbees.com. And in a week or two, I think we'll have an audiobook that's going to be available for free. So you can buy it now for download or a print copy, or in a week or two, wait and listen to it as an audiobook for free.
We read it ourselves. And I'm going to throw one more quick thing in and say something I love. I've been publishing books for, oh my gosh, so long now. And I've worked with, since I think my first book came out in 99. I've worked with Simon & Schuster. I've worked with University of Texas Press. I've worked with Seal Press. I've worked with big houses, small houses. And I published my last 3 or 4 books myself. And there's, I think there's that little bit of like, oh, is there stigma? Is this vanity publishing? What, you're not good enough or whatever? For me, there's so much freedom in being able to not only get this out really quickly in time, but also to, I'm going to say it, have control over the project, not be pushing back and forth with some editor who's like, well, can you add in a murder and a car crash and whatever. It's exactly what we wanted it to be. And Steve and I, we're very different people. We write in very different styles. And I think, we may have bumped into some people like, how can you do this? How can you have two completely different voices? Well, because we do. So there was also a lot of artistic freedom in that, I think. I mean, Steve, I don't know if you agree with that, but that's my take on it.
I agree.
Oh, hooray. I love it when we agree. It's wonderful.
Well, it is great to get both of your perspectives on it, because you each had a different path to getting there, right? And
yes,
so that'll help other people who are in, can't do it maybe just the way one of you did it, but sees that there's multiple ways to get there. I did note, Steve, I thought this was really interesting that you talk a lot about getting back to things you loved as a child. And I wondered if you think that childlike wonder is at the heart of doing nothing or making best use of your time or improving your life through doing nothing.
Yes, that's a good question, and certainly personal. I think that is kind of also what we do in the book, is that we invite people to find their own definition. I was just listening to I was reading about Tori Amos recently, and I just heard a song of hers, and it threw me back to when I was younger. But she was a prodigy at 5 years old, and they studied her at Johns Hopkins, and she did not know how to read music. She played music by through what came into her head as light and color and shapes. And so to me, that's kind of like symbolic of how we can approach this subject. We can all have our own way of doing it. She was never locked into saying, you have to learn how to read music. She still doesn't read music. But for me, the way I approached this was to go back to things I wanted to do as a child. And the way I did that was I drove to Dallas. It was a few years ago. I got on I-35 and I drove north 3 hours to my elementary school. And this was an idea that someone had recommended to me. Go find a place that you were most happy in life and go back there. So I went back there. For me, it was when I was 10. I got to that front door, and the smell of the school took me right back to 10 years old. I opened the door, went into that hallway, and knew right then that I'd refound myself and had a goal for who I wanted to be. I went to my fourth grade classroom on the second floor. I opened up the door, and everything came rushing back to when I was like the most whole, happiest I'd ever been in my life. So everybody has a place like that, I hope, at some point in their lives. So for me, it was like going back to that place, not trying to just find it all of a sudden today. Yeah. And that whole experience helped a lot.
And that's beautiful. I mean, going back and revisiting. Have you found that wholeness now, do you think, after working on it for so long?
I have. I'm almost embarrassed to say that I'm extremely happy. A friend of mine was saying, I told somebody that recently, and it's a good way to figure out who supports you, because some people are like, well, you might want to keep that to yourself. And, but no, I'm happy. So I'm enthusiastic, and my life just seems to be getting better. And that's kind of the way I want it to be. I don't want it to be static. I'm okay if something bad does happen, but I'm also not. I've worked on not waiting for the other shoe to drop. I don't want that to be part of my happiness. So I'm doing well.
I wanted to. Okay, Carol. I love Carol. I'm gonna let Carol say this. She just wrote a nice comment. You're unmuted, Carol.
Oh, yeah. I've just said I love the idea of that T.S. Eliot wrote, the still point in the turning world, finding that still point as the world's around you. But what you guys added to that is that you can collect these moments. I love that, sort of your emotional or spiritual or piggy bank. I love that.
Oh yeah, that
Very
is.
helpful.
Ooh, merch opportunity. We're gonna make spiritual piggy banks. Yes, thank you. I'm gonna take a ceramics class immediately.
For me, I'll add it like comments like that and your questions. I've never written a book before, and so I've been starting to experience feedback, and it's been wonderful because the book now has its own life, and it's so great to hear like comments like that because it makes me learn more even as after I've written something.
That's nice. We'll just keep learning, right? I just wonder if somebody wants to share, but we're getting towards the end, but if somebody wants to share what they do, how they experience this doing nothing, or that, you know, because everybody has their different path. You can wave your hand or something. I'm looking at a gallery view. Is anybody, I think that Kirsten, yes, there's,
Oh, hi.
That's Willie. He's 19 pounds. And he's got red hair, and he was born on Willie's birthday.
oh.
No.
So Kirsten, did you have
A way that I do it? Yeah, for me, I teach meditation at work. I've been meditating since, let's see, I think I was 5 when my parents took us to a transcendental meditation monk to be taught. Yeah, that would never happen now. Go in this room with this man wearing robes all by yourself, child. But it was, so when I teach meditation at work, often I say, let's start by saying to ourselves, now is the time to meditate. And so how I translate that to me is, like earlier today, I just took a little, lay down a little napper, and my mind was like, but you should, but you should, but you should, and remember, and what's on the agenda for tomorrow. And then I said, now is the time for rest. And I really have to, I don't have any mnemonic or any device to help remember it. I just try to place it.
That's nice. That's like giving yourself the permission, which is fabulous. What, do you have any tricks like that too, Spike or Steve?
I do when I'm meditating. If I'm sitting there, I usually do a 21-minute meditation in the morning, and a second one when Barton Springs is open. So let's say I'm sitting there, and despite decades of practice, this still happens all the time. It'll pop into my head, clean Willie's litter box, change the oil, go to the grocery store. And the harder I try to dismiss those thoughts, like clouds passing through the sky, because the way my mind works is I'll latch onto it, like your tongue going to the hole where the dentist said don't do that. So instead what I'll do is I'll pick 3 words to represent, or whatever, however many thoughts I have. Let's say I pick the word cat, milk, and cat milk oil. I'll begin repeating those in my head, not out loud. And then they become nonsense words. They become like a mantra. So that takes care of that. But I know that when I'm done and I open my eyes back up, if I say my nonsense words, I have my list. That sounds kind of creepy, but it's a way for me to address the issue. Yeah.
That's great. I mean, I will remember that. I didn't read that even in Eat, Love, Pray or whatever.
Yeah.
So Julie has a comment. Julie Roberts, I'm unmuting you. Oh, or maybe you don't want to be. There you are.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I don't mind talking. That handsome guy in my profile photo has changed the world for me right now. I obviously I'm working from home. I'm on a 4-day schedule, and every morning I get up and walk my dog for an hour. We have a beautiful trail and wetlands about 5 minutes from my house, and I become him for that hour. So the dogs live in the moment.
Yeah.
And for that hour every morning, I live in the moment. I listen to the birds and the frogs, and I let him smell. I mean, it's a 1.5 mile walk, and it takes us an hour because it's his chance to smell everything and my chance to just take it in. And it has helped so much. And a little side note to this, I am a recent cancer survivor. In November, I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. So all through fall and winter, I recovered from radical hysterectomy and chemo. So my world changed back then as well. And luckily it was stage 1. But still, it was such a shock, and that kind of helped me prioritize. This become easier for me because I learned I had to slow down. I had to pay attention, you know, so.
And
Yeah.
sorry. I imagine that most of us don't want to wait until we get sick to slow down. Is that?
We talk about that in the book, and I've had many surgeries, including a hysterectomy that just, I was like, I'll bounce back from this, and I did not bounce back from it. It was a very long recovery for me, and and in the book we talk about, like, well, when these come up and then you're sitting there for a week or weeks, or for me it was 6 weeks, and I'm like, gosh, obviously the world did not end without me being there present to run it. So why don't I take that as an idea that I could have some healthy days off? You know, the world isn't going to collapse. And I talk about how I went to visit a dying friend of mine. I was juggling a lot when I got the call that he was about to die. My family was visiting from New Jersey. I had all these weddings I had to perform. And that was a terrible lesson, but valuable in that I called some friends. They took care of my family. I called other wedding officiants. You can make time. It's doable. I also wanted to throw in there that I can't believe we forgot to mention this. Our producer director in this whole project actually is Steve's dog, River, who is even more relaxed than Steve is. Is River right there, Steve?
He's asleep right next to me.
Oh, of course he is. He's doing nothing.
Yeah.
And before we sign off, I know that I wanted to see if either of you, Steve or Spike, got private messages. Was there a private message or something that somebody wrote?
I haven't seen any on mine.
Okay.
I'm not seeing any, but I'm really focused on the screen.
Okay, I just wanted, Erilyn, she had asked me about that. Did you have something are you still there?
Oh, maybe
Erilyn, did you have a question?
Yes, I just had a couple of private messages that I know that were exactly related to what we were doing, but I was basically interested in audiobook and why they decided to do an audiobook of this book, because audio, is a new format. I don't think Spike has done that in her other books. So I was just wondering about it and the cost and the decision to make the book audio.
I actually have done other audio projects, and I did a course for Insight Timer on death and grief, and I also at Insight Timer, that's a really cool meditation app. 8 audio chapters of my meditation book are available for free or for donation. I also did a recording of another book of mine that never made it out into the world. These days, actually, audio is not that new at all. I've been a member of Audible since 2004. I mean, it's much more popular now. And Steve and I, if I may again, I try to only speak for myself, but we have a lot of very good, very talented friends who were very psyched about this project we were doing as a public service and who volunteered their time. We turned a closet in my house into a recording studio. And that said, you also can do recordings really inexpensively now if you have like a MacBook or whatever. And I have a little Snowball microphone, and I do pretty decent recordings. The catch is to find a very acoustically sound spot in your house, like a closet.
Good, good. Well, we've had people who are saying thank you. They really enjoyed this. I know I have. I'm going to start working on being like a sleeping bee, baby.
Thanks. Yeah, you don't even have to work on it. You just have to not
well,
work
that's
on
true. That's
Yeah.
true.
May I just
work on it?
Yeah, and I wanted, if it's okay, I would just like to remind people, it's super easy, sleepingbees.com. You can grab a print copy, you can grab an e-copy, and then that audio copy will be coming out really soon. We don't know exactly when, but quite soon.
Yes, Mars said, be the bee. I like that. Be the
Be the bee.
Be the bee. And for all of you, we next try we do like 6 or 7 or 8 virtual events a week. something like this, or yoga, or cooking classes, and social hours. So please, everyone's welcome to join. It's free. And if you do want to be a member, which is something that just helps us through this time, it's you can join. It's on the website. So we appreciate that too. We just hope to see more of you. And we thank you, Spike, and thank you, Steve. You really, really made it a great day for me. And
that was a fun, fast hour. Yeah, thanks,
really
everybody. Really, that was so fun. I really appreciate it. Yeah, thanks.
Yes, thank you, everyone, and hope to see you again. Take care.
Okay, take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.